NXT best wrestling show on television, bar none. Bar none. This was also another good episode of NXT, and it sets up more great episodes of NXT. Oh my God. How is every episode of NXT the best episode of NXT? That's an inside joke, by the way. Alright, let's get into this thing. Stephanie Vaker defeats Carmen Petrovich, and she remains the Women's North American Champion. Easily Carmen Petrovich's best match. She actually looked very good here. They kind of botched the finish a little bit. Carmen Petrovich supposed to take a dragon screw, and then that went into, I think Stephanie's finisher is called the STB, which is kind of like a pump. No, I'm about to say a pump handle. Not a pump handle. It's more like a packaged backbreaker. Very weird finish for a woman to have, but in any event, very good match. I enjoyed it. Julia came down and got in Stephanie Vaker's face. Says that she was the better champion than Stephanie. Stephanie says that La Primera means that she's a champion of champions, and she accepted a title for title match between these two, which is going to take place at NXT Roadblock in Madison Square Garden. My God, they're rushing this thing, aren't they? That was the first thought that I had outside of whether the match was going to be any good or not. It was also like, this feels kind of sudden, you know. I know they kind of teased it here and there, but for these two to have a match where there's no heat between them, it's just who's the best, and now it's title for title. It seems a little extra. Something tells me this is going to end up being a disqualification, count out, or something like that. So neither one of them takes a solid pin. They're just going to try to... and this Roadblock thing is going to be on TV, by the way. So it's not a pay-per-view event, which you would... once you start talking about it, it's bigger than pretty much most of NXT pay-per-views. But I think this thing is going to be disqualification bait. It ought to be just a pretty good match. But it's likely going to have some kind of heel that's going to get involved and make a mess of things. I'm going to make a random guess that it's going to end up being perhaps Cora Jade or somebody like that. Because Stand and Deliver is still the biggest event that NXT does. It's their version of WrestleMania. It takes place WrestleMania weekend. And you would think that if they really going to do any kind of Julia versus Stephanie Vaker match where it's going to be title for title and all that, it would be that weekend. The fact that they're doing it way before then lets me know that it's just to set up whatever the women's main event of Stand and Deliver is going to be, which it actually might be either, you know, Jordynne Grace or I would hate for it to be Roxanne Perez, but it could very well be. But in terms of the announcement, it was very cool. I got it very excited right off the jump. Ariana Grace is hanging out with her pappy, and Lola Vice wants to have a match, but Ariana Grace is too busy hanging out with Dad. So then Lola Vice challenged Ariana Grace to a match, and Ariana didn't really accept, but was kind of coerced into it. So Ariana lost to Lola Vice because that's what Ariana does. She's better as a character than she is as a wrestler anyway. But the match was short, and it was a nice solid return for Lola Vice. Oba Femi has a backstage segment with Lexis King, as Lexis King claims he's going to beat Moose and ruin the big dream match. Oba Femi is less than enthused about that, but he had nothing to worry about because Moose handled business. Moose defeated Lexis King. This match was for the X Division title. I don't think it's been that many times where a non-WWE championship has been defended on WWE TV. I think it's been since the 90s. Now, the ECW stuff clearly doesn't count because ECW was owned by WWE when they did that. But they had those NWA tag belts and I think the NWA North American title, when Jarrett had it, those things were defended on WWF TV. I believe Smoky Mountain also had belts defended in WWF TV. So it hasn't happened that often, but, it was still pretty cool. And this match was actually better than it had any right to be. Moose showed some really good athleticism and some agility here. He seemed to be very motivated. Lexis King showed some grit. He hit Moose with his finish, and Moose kicked out of it, which I guess makes Lexis King look stupid. But it's a solid win for Moose to make him seem strong. He beat the Heritage Cup champion, who, he's like the 4th string champion in NXT, but whatever. Oba Femi comes out. He then challenges Moose, Madison Square Garden, title for title at Roadblock. Ava would come back with her big choppers later, her big body, and then say that it's only for the NXT title. So Oba Femi wanted it title for title. Ava decided it's only the NXT championship on the line. That kind of shits on it, but it's fine. It just tells everybody that Oba Femi is going to win, and Moose is not going to, drop the X Division title to him. But Moose is a second-tier champion in TNA. I get it. The X Division title is very important, has a great deal of history. Why make it take a loss? Well, they're trading wins and losses on this show. They're not going to have NXT beat everybody, because some of the matches that they're going to do, that I'm going to announce and talk about later, are going to be clearly TNA guys winning. All right, this one is just one where NXT is clearly going to win, and this match ought to be fine. Moose really worked this match like he was trying to get Shawn Michaels' attention, but I hope Shawn was asleep. Hope he didn't get too excited. Everybody must remember that Moose is a bum. All right, you must remember that Moose is a bum. All right, of the highest order. Moving on. Speaking of bums, the king of bums, Shawn Spears. He said he's a guide for talented individuals, and then he runs down his family, which includes this guy Nico Vance, who looks like he stepped straight out of the cast of Oz. Who is this guy? Where did he come from? He says that he's going to win the North American Championship, not with his family. And speaking of which, Tony D'Angelo had a segment with his fam. He said he appreciated Stax' effort last week in directing the family, but he's got to handle this Shawn Spears thing himself. Stax was concerned about this due to Tony D'Angelo's, I guess, injury or perceived weakness of sorts. And Tony D'Angelo was like, I got it. I got this. I can handle this. So they're going to have a match next week, Shawn Spears versus Tony D'Angelo for the North American Championship. And let me tell you this, I fully expect Shawn Spears to win this match. And I might rip a door off the hinges. All right. I love me some Tony D'Angelo. I hate Shawn Spears. So I might just rip the whole fucking door jam off. Because I got a feeling, baby, I got the feeling they're going to put the belt on Shawn Spears. I can't. Damn it. Let's move on. Kalani Jordan and Jada Parker are on a bus together. They didn't explain why. I guess they were on a road trip to Cincinnati and all the girls rode together or something. But Kalani Jordan was shit-talking Jada Parker, who was at the back of the bus. She was no Rosa Parks. And then they're yelling at each other on the bus. Jada Parker didn't cut an amazing promo later where she called Kalani Jordan baby 6 times, smacked her lips, and then stared at the camera and said she don't play. Jada Parker's promos, they lack content, but they are very much the voice of the character. She sounds like she looks, right? So it works on that scale. The only issue that I have, however, is I think that she lacks content sometimes, and maybe range of character as well. I'm not sure she has more than she's just kind of bitchy, which works. Is kind of baddie-ish. Like, I don't know if she could pull off like being a comedian or something, but why do that? stick with what works. And right now, Jada Parker rules the world. I mean, she's really good at this, and surprisingly so. Speaking of good at this, Jordynne Grace, she felt the hunger of NXT, wanted to be a part of it. She wants to be a champion. She says that Julia and Stephanie Vaker are concerned. The foundations of what they built have shifted when she showed up, and she will be standing across the ring from one of them. Roxanne Perez showed up, says that NXT is the place to be because she made it that way. This is her division. Jordynne Grace was a big fish in a small pond, but she doesn't get to come to NXT and call any shots. Then she's talked about there's a gap between them and how she's going to win 2 championships because she's going to win the women's world title at WrestleMania. Then she's going to come back and win the NXT belt. Then Jordynne Grace punched her in the face because who the hell wants to hear about that? All right, so they're continuing this thing and they're doing the smart booking. Roxanne Perez has beaten Jordynne Grace before. They actually mentioned that in this promo. They're going to give Jordynne Grace her win back first before they have Jordynne Grace chase for the title. Smart. All right. Now, the only problem I have here is, well, Roxanne, she's going to be in the Elimination Chamber this weekend. So she's not going to win it. So you can do the match with Jordynne Grace next week or the week after. Let Jordynne Grace get her win. That can be Roxanne Perez's sayonara from NXT. And maybe you can move Jordynne Grace on to being the opponent for either Stephanie or Julia at Stand and Deliver. The question now is, should she be a heel when she does it? That would be the question. Because people really like Julia and Stephanie Vaker. And I'm not so sure that it's time to turn them yet. Now, Jordynne Grace is another fan favorite, but I think that of the 3, she's probably the easiest one to turn at this point in time. But I'm just chucking ideas out there. Somebody's got to be a heel, for God's sake. Everybody can't be a babyface, all right? Also, if I was booking this thing, I would probably have Jordynne Grace wrestle Julia. That, again, just me. Because Julia needs, opponents. And I think if she beats Jordynne Grace and then Jordynne Grace double backs, because that's how Sean books, they can have the first match, Julia wins it, and then they double back a month or 2 later, and Jordynne Grace gets the win back. So Trick Williams is backstage. He's pissed. He's very mad. He's reading on the internet where people are talking about him losing. He ain't won a match all year. Javon Evans trying to talk to him. He bows up at Javon. Javon like, you ready to crash out? And he's like, you damn right. So they're about to fight because Trick Williams is an asshole apparently, and Javon Evans is like, I ain't gonna take no shit off Trick. And then Ricky Stark shows up and he offers to shake Trick Williams' hand, and Trick Williams is like, yeah, I know who you are, and leaves. And poor Ricky is standing there with his hand out like, and he's like, why is everybody so mad around here every week? Like, yeah, man, these guys are not in good moods. It used to be happy times in NXT, not so much anymore. Everybody's brooding around there now, for God's sake. Happy times anymore. Everybody's pissy now. Speaking of pissy, Eddie Thorp cut a promo about Indians and the Trail of Tears in Ohio. What the fuck is he talking about? And what did that got to do with opportunities, which is the main crux of this thing? He wants the same opportunities that Trick Williams got, but somehow we ended up talking about the Trail of Tears. So they're going to end up having another match, which is what I expected. We don't know when, though. I got to say, I don't hate Eddie Thorpe as much as I hate Ethan Page, but I don't like Eddie Thorpe. I've never been a fan. Not a fan of that guy. But, Ricky Saints and Javon Evans defeated Wesley and Ethan Page in a pretty hot main event. The crowd was super hot for Ricky. They didn't care what the fuck his name was. His theme song was okay. Theme song was not bad, but the presentation was phenomenal. The strobe lights and all that kind of stuff, very cool. Even though his entrance is mostly still the same from AEW, I think the more that people can recognize, the better. There's been a lot made about him changing his name. I don't think too much about that, even though I do question the decision. But it's still very familiar for people who are familiar with him. So this match was fun. It was a fun match. The Tony fumbled chants. So earlier in the match, they're doing the old thing where Ricky Starks is on the ring apron. They're chanting, "We want Ricky." And then they start chanting, "Tony fumbled," which they didn't show what Ricky's reaction to that was, which I'm pretty sure he was smiling. I mean, poor Tony Khan. He is just getting disrespected all over the place. He's getting disrespected in lawsuits. The crowds are disrespecting him. I mean, yes, it's a fact. He did fumble Ricky Starks, and I think he knows that too, but there's nothing you can do about it. You know, I think they've poisoned the well enough where the AEW fans don't think so. They think that Swerve was a better option. They think Swerve was a better choice. And look, I like Swerve too, so I'm not going to diss Swerve, but I don't think there was an either-or situation. I think you could have had both of them. I think they both could have been successful. I think if Tony Khan had an eye for talent, Ricky Starks wouldn't have been in the position that he was in that frustrated him and what made him want to leave. You know, so yes, he absolutely fumbled it. And a lot of that has to do with Tony Khan not having an eye for talent. He really is a mark for the people he grew up with. You know, the people he watched when he was on these dirt sheet websites. Those are the people that he values. That's why he never gives up on them. He keeps them around forever. So guys like AR Fox are guaranteed to at least be on Ring of Honor. When, what the fuck did he even have the job for? You have 6 of the same guy already. You know, like there's like 7 or 8 guys on the roster who do the same thing he does. What do you need that guy for? But he probably watched him on some indie tapes way back in the gap, and now he just doesn't want to get rid of him. But that's a personal issue. That's a flaw for Tony Khan. He doesn't know how to look at a talent who has not achieved great success already and see that this guy could be successful. The problem with Ricky Starks wasn't that he was friends with Cody or friends with Punk or anything like that. One of the bigger problems was that he wasn't a success before he came to AEW. He was a relatively young indie wrestler looking for an opportunity. And anybody who had eyeballs would have saw that this guy had talent and would have tried to make something out of him. But not Tony. Because Tony was interested in pushing guys who already had a following, either from Japan, either from the independents, or from WWE. Ricky Starks didn't have any of that. So yes, he fumbled it. And he fumbled it because he don't know what the fuck he's looking for. He doesn't know how to market. He doesn't know how to promote. These things are big, big problems. This is the business that you're in. Storytelling, marketing, and promotions. He has not proven to be good at any of these things consistently. He knows how to put Danielson and Omega in the match because who wouldn't want to see that? But can you make people want to see this guy who didn't have a huge following on the independents or whatever before he got there? You know, build this guy from scratch. Like he had a chance with Wardlow to do that. Flopped. You know, there's Powerhouse Hobbs, flop. Oh, but he managed to push MJF, who was, you know, he's a kind of a medium-sized star on MLW TV. He wasn't a superstar, so I guess you can give him some credit for pushing MJF. But Swerve was a big star on the independents before he went to WWE. You know, so the idea that he was making stars from scratch is like, no, all he does is he says, this guy's a great indie wrestler. I've seen him, you know, wrestling so-and-so and such, and I'm going to push him. And then that's it. But if you're fresh, you know, you're coming to AEW for an opportunity, go take bumps on Ring of Honor and, you know, see you later. That's a problem. And yes, that's absolutely a fumble. But whatever. Anyway, the match was fun. They ended up pairing off in the feuds. Javon Evans and Ethan Page fought off Wesley and Ricky Saints. You might not hear that too many more times. Actually started fighting at the end. There was a slight botch at the finish where Wesley went for the cardiac kick. We actually got it, but Ricky held on. He then picked up Wesley. Now, Ricky Saints is not a big guy. He's not even really a medium-sized guy. But this shows how small Wesley is. He picks Wesley up on his shoulder like the British Bulldog and then flips him and does the running Rochambeau and pins Wesley in the middle of the ring. And you could tell Ricky was extremely excited about this. He was very happy at the outcome of this thing. And you got to be happy for the guy, man. Incredibly talented. Finally got his due. I like it. Good match. Good debut for Ricky. He showed some fire. The crowd was hot for him. But it was a basic tag team match with some pretty decent spots. So nothing wrong with this at all. Now the big story. The Hardy Boys return to NXT. Massive reaction. Camera shaking reaction. Building shaking reaction. As they defend the TNA Tag Team Championships against the No Quarter Cash crew. A very good team of Miles Bourne and Tavion Heights. When the Hardys made their entrance, Vic Joseph says that this reaction is so big that even Miles Bourne can hear it. And Booker T, of all people, was trying to shame Vic Joseph for making a death joke. You ain't got to do all that, man. Why you got to do that, man? You ain't have to say that. This match was great vibes. The crowd was incredibly hot because the Hardys were there. I'm not a big Matt Hardy guy. I'm really not. So his limitations were what they were. They're not going to change. But it was always very cool to see Jeff back in WWE. And they talked about throughout the week wanting to end their WWE careers in a better way. Especially with the way Jeff left the company, 2 or 3 years ago, when he basically just wandered through the crowd and disappeared. He wanted to fix that, and I think he went a long way here because people were extremely excited. There was not even an ounce of resentment for people when it comes to the Hardy Boys. They just love these guys. And No Quarter Cash crew is just very good, man. Miles Bourne, he does look like Randy Orton. I don't know why. The crowd was chanting, "You're not Randy," at Miles Bourne. He can't help what he looks like, man. Like, the guy can't help it. Maybe he might have to grow hair or something. But he does look like Randy. He looks more like Randy Orton than Kyle Fletcher does. Kyle Fletcher also looks like Randy Orton. Fraxium was watching the match and applauding. After the Hardy Boys won, they called themselves the best tag team, but admitted that the Hardys were the GOATs. The Hardys were like, let's just make the challenge. Santino actually comes out to Santino Marella's theme song, which is weird, because I hadn't heard it in so long, I didn't know who the fuck that was. And then he made the match for the TNA Tag Team Championships, the Hardys versus Fraxium. And let me tell you, like I said earlier, when it comes to Oba Femi and Moose, this is the match that TNA is clearly going to win. Alright? There's no way that Fraxium wins the TNA Tag Team titles. That would be great if they did. It would be a hell of a moment if they did. But I don't think so. I don't think TNA wants to go that far. I don't think they want the relationship to go that far. But so far, they have set up at least 2 of these matches, these crossover matches. It's built into a crossover show from what I'm hearing. They're probably going to have a bigger crossover show. They just want to tease with these 2 first. And it's obviously TNA is going to lose one and they're going to win one. So Moose is obviously going to lose and the Hardys are obviously going to win. So that's fine for me. I think that's fair. The only way it wouldn't be fair is if you are kind of tight ass about the X Division title losing. But Fraxium has been one of the best tag teams in the world, and they shouldn't be losing to the Hardys, if we're being honest. But they're gonna. They're gonna. because it's the right thing to do, to pay TNA back for that job Moose is about to do. But Moose is a bum. Moose is a bum, so it doesn't matter. He's supposed to do jobs for guys like Oba Femi. Nigerian on Nigerian violence. What else we got here? Yes. Chelsea Green will be in a tag team match against Zarya and Sol Ruka. This occurs because Chelsea Green appeared backstage and basically talked herself into this. This ought to be fun, at least. I don't know why you would do this, because Sol Ruka and Zarya shouldn't be losing, and neither should Chelsea Green. Chelsea Green is the United States champion. The only thing that you would get out of this is that one of the two of these women is going to end up challenging Chelsea for her belt, which is fine, I guess. But that would mean that Piper is probably going to get pinned. And are they going to do the big spot where Zarya picks up Piper Niven? Is that what they're going to do? Because that seems like that's going to be the point of this match. And then maybe having a Chelsea Green versus Sol Ruka match where Chelsea Green can beat her. I wouldn't have Chelsea Green beat Zarya. Again, the vignettes that we got for Zarya do not match what they're actually doing with her creatively. But I'm willing to give them some time. So your four guys that have been running around beating people up, they're still doing that. They beat up the No Quarter Cash crew this week. So this is the second week in a row where they decided to not focus on these guys. That they're just kind of roving bandits in buildings, beating up NXT guys, and nobody's going to do anything. You got to build like a vigilance committee or something of maybe undercard NXT guys who are going to try to figure out who these guys are and go on the hunt. That could be a fun couple of episodes. You get like a madcap bunch of mid-card NXT guys and they go hunting for these dudes. That could be fun. So that's NXT. Thoroughly enjoyed the show. They are threatening to do some pretty interesting moves when it comes to signings, actually. There were three names. All three of these people are people of color. Kevin Knight, who has most recently been working in TNA. There was some discussion that they might be bringing him into NXT, and maybe on a full-time basis. I like Kevin Knight. He's a talented young man. He's kind of generic in terms of much like a Javon Evans, where he's just what's the word I'm looking for? Black, athletic, young guy. He does a lot of flips and stuff. But I think he's done like New Japan and he's done some stuff in TNA. He might be a good acquisition for WWE if they was to bring him in. There's this, I don't know if he's British or what, but he has this really stupid name called Man Like Darius. They're talking about bringing that guy in too. I'm not that familiar with him. I've seen him before, but I'm not that familiar with him. I think I've seen this guy live too. I think I may have seen him wrestle Megan Bain. He does intergender wrestling. He didn't offend me, but he didn't jump out to me either. And then there was a young lady named Rio, R-H-I-O, who is the women's champion of Progress, if I remember correctly, which is a European wrestling company. And I think I've seen her before too, but she also didn't jump off the page. And there were some discussions of bringing them in too for like tryouts and everything. Apparently they were doing like very limited tryouts for NXT recently. And just amazing that they're not stopping. Even after all of the acquisitions of Zarya and Julia and Stephanie Vaker and Jordynne Grace and Ricky Starks, they're not stopping. They're like, nope, we got to bring in some more people. Like we're bringing in more. We need more. And I'm like, man, you don't need all these people. So that just tells you that there's a lot of the people going to be cut. It's coming up. There's going to be a lot of cuts coming. It's going to be mostly talent who were featured on Next Level or Level Up who never really grew. There's probably going to be a lot of those talent. But I haven't been watching that LFG show either. And I know that Myra May Steele, the female Olympic gold medalist, she's on there, I think. And I think Elijah Holyfield, the son of Evander Holyfield, he's also on the show. I did see him. So they ought to be pretty cool. I don't know what's taking so long for them to bring that Olympic gold medalist girl up. She's been in NXT for a long time. She's a little overdone. She was on Level Up and stuff, so I don't know. But she should be on her way up soon. Then there's also some NIL deals that he did. Scott Steiner's son, one of his sons, has gotten an NIL deal. And he's also, has some interest in being a wrestler. Man, could you imagine 2 Steiners on the roster? Holy shit. That could be fun. So NXT, there's a lot of fun stuff going on. There's also some fun stuff potentially in the future, especially if they bring in Kevin Knight. There's a lot of good things to look forward to. The crossover show with TNA, which seems to be inevitable at this point. Hey, NXT, best wrestling show on television. I mean, I don't even see how you can deny it at this point. Piper Niven showed up with a taser, bro. She threatened to tase Sol Ruka, bro. How can you... This is like NXT only stuff. She showed up with a taser, dude. Oh, shit. I don't even remember what that segment was about. I just remember the taser. That shit was hilarious. So, yeah, man. NXT is great. From top to bottom, it's very fun. You get to watch a lot of young talents grow. Carmen Petrovic had her best match tonight. No Quarter Cash Crew probably just had their best match as well, even though it's with the washed up Hardys. Moose, who is, of course, super washed, he did the best that he could. He really wanted this. Motivated, went out there, hustled for it. Same thing with Lexis King. Even the people that you didn't expect a lot out of, they went out there and did the best that they could. And that's the thing about NXT, man. It's a proving ground, and people bring it. It's not a situation where people take the week off, because that's what they do on the main roster. Guys disappear for weeks at a time. Not on NXT, man. They bring it, and I'm loving it. I love this show. Like, share, subscribe. I'll talk to you guys later.